SA News presentation.
A warm welcome to Interface here on SA3. My name is Thembisa. We're talking about all things justice. The Minister of Justice and Institutional Development tabled or presented a budget vote this past week in Parliament, and it was debated. A lot of issues came out. And also the National Prosecutor has come under fire in recent times. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that tonight on Interface. We invited the Minister of Justice, and unfortunately he was not able to join us. We do have the Deputy Minister, Andries Nel, who is joining us tonight. And your thoughts as per usual. Our line is 33726 and our Facebook page is Interface on SA3. Do give us your thoughts. And I want to start, Deputy Minister, welcome. And start with just one of the came out from our Facebook page, by the way, and thank you so much. Do keep them. And Lamula says, how can the Justice Minister say all is well when all people in Africa are complaining about everything concerning the justice system? Let's start there. Is all in the justice system?
Perhaps start with the topic of the NPA.
In a second.
I know that we're going to, and maybe in addressing that, I can also address some of the issues.
No, I think let's start with a broader perception or concept of what you think the justice system, or how you think it, and then we'll get into the NPA just now.
I think our justice system has come a very, very long way since 1994. I think that is the first point. Sure. We, first of all, have an institution, one of the best, most advanced in the world, wanted slowly but surely implement that constitution in all assets. Transform the judiciary.
Yep.
I mean, we've come a long way. Since 1994, 165 judges, 160 were white men, 3 black men and 2 white women. Black women at all. The story can be told for the democracy. We've come a long way. There's still a long way to go. In terms of access to justice, which is probably one of the burning priorities for the department, we have ensured that we're building new courts in our country. High Court, Mpumalanga and Limpopo is on to be built. We opened a court, a magistrates court in Tuzuma, in KZN. We're busy revamping existing
Not too
court.
bad.
Things are happening, but I'm not here to tell you everything is rosy.
Sure, that
would not be true. I don't think that's what we want to be saying. But what we're saying is have a balanced and informed debate. Just recognize the tremendous progress made, that the good things that, but also the challenges that still remain.
Okay, point well made, Deputy Minister. The issue of the NPA, you know, it's come under a lot of fire at times for a number of high-profile cases. You know, criticism coming from all, and yet the this past week comes out and says progress that they're making. They're doing a good job. What does he base that on?
Will you a couple of minutes?
Let's see how you go.
Thank you. The argument that is being put forward is that the NPA is in crisis.
Sure.
Why is the NPA in crisis? Because there's a leadership vacuum. Why is there a leadership vacuum? Because a permanent head of the prosecuting authority hasn't been appointed.
In fact, she's been acting for months,
yes.
I hear.
What, first of all, is a badly run organization? In 2007, when the NPA by Advocate Vusi Pikoli, it had a qualified audit opinion. The next year, 2007-8, had a disclaimer. A disclaimer means books are in such a shambles that the Auditor General is not even able to give an opinion. 2008-9, Advocate Msh takes over, qualified audit opinion. 9, 10, Advocate Similani is at audit. Then 2011, when the baton passes from Advocate to Advocate Jiba, no qualification.
But hold on.
2011-12, no audit qualification.
Okay.
So for the first in more than a decade, the NPA has had 2 consecutive unqualified audits. And we're hoping that this country will be a third row in a row.
I take your point,
So
Deputy Minister.
I think
on that very note,
I think as far as the auditor is concerned, the NPA is probably better run being run in terms of its finance.
I've got to come in here because on the one hand, running a successful organization can't all be about books. If you have got your books in and yet you are losing cases, great numbers, or high profile, surely something is amiss there.
That is what I'm coming to next.
Yes.
But I just want to conclude the audit issue by saying we're not saying that because the NPA unqualified audits that there are no problems. The Auditor General has raised emphasis, things that need to be attended to, some of them matters that needed to be attended to. We, in Justice, the Acting National Director, to dealing with those things that the Auditor General has raised. The point, the NPA is better run at any time in the past 10 years, as far as the Auditor General is concerned. You might say, but the business, the business of the NPA is not books.
Exactly.
It's to put people in jail. So, 2006, when Advocate Pikoli headed the NPA, in our district courts, we had a conviction rate of 1%. In our courts, 72%. In our high courts, 85%. 2012, under the leadership of Advocate G, we have 90% in the district, 74.3 regional courts, 0.6 in the high courts. That has gone up even further to 91.9% courts, 75.1 regional, and 87.5.
You don't have the luxury of time.
I just want to say the conviction is that prosecution services in the world use to measure success, be it in the United States of America. It's the standard that the NPA has used since 1990. So the argument, compare apples with apples. Apples are redder than they were a decade ago. So that is the big picture.
We've a short break, and I want us to talk about how then we are hearing judges in court saying cases are badly and chronically mismanaged. The NPA is doing a glorious work, like you are saying. But let's take a quick break. Back to Interface, we're chatting Andries Nel, the Deputy Minister of and Constitutional Development, things justice, but particularly prosecuting authority. Do give us your thoughts. SMS line, that's 33726, or on our Facebook page, that's Interface on SABC3. Before the break, you were saying, Deputy Minister, the NPA has done a great job so far in terms of prosecuting. So when are we seeing these bruising losses, what if they are doing such a great job?
Well, I think the point I'm trying to make is that aren't bruising losses. The overall rate of convictions continues to climb. The measure using a conviction rate comes with of its own, and if we had more time, I would have loved to have discussed the positives and negatives of using that methodology. However, what I think is problematic is to take the 5 most recent high cases in which there are acquittals, that there's a crisis in the NPA. that is not logical nor accurate. Cases that are cited most often, Tatane matter,
Sure.
in Boyson matter, the J. Arthur Brown,
Yeah.
right? But it's just
And recently the Breitenbach matter.
right.
not
The
in court yet, but
that's an disciplinary matter,
which the NPA wants to the courts. Is that even prudent?
Well, I mean that's an. I mean the NPA has many cases.
Yes, but
and I mean each
but
and every
here's
one
what
of
I'm
them.
saying on this particular, because
But
it's
I
dragged
think
on for so long, Deputy Minister. When you have the presiding officer in the case saying the case here, and yet the NPA turns around, we want to take this to court, is something that you as the Justice Minister?
I really we don't interfere in individual cases.
And when you see that
we respect the prosecutorial independence. We don't interfere in cases. We do interact with the National Director of Public Prosecution time to time to get reports on general matters, and in some cases, if the public is there, to ask for a particular matter. We never interfere in individual cases.
A case like this where the NPA seems to be losing credibility with the public at large, where they a case like that, they're looking at the J. Arthur case and saying something is wrong. What is your role as the
But let us come to those cases. J. Arthur Brown, he takes that matter to court. They enter into an agreement. There's a conviction on fraud. The judge passes a certain sentence which has caused a public outcry. The NPA disagrees with the outcome of that case. They've drafted a lengthy and comprehensive notice of appeal, which will be sent for the High Court in the West tomorrow. We'll await the outcome of that and see where to take it from there. The matter is not concluded. Secondly, Andries Boyson, there are 3 people who are caught. In one of those, the investigating officer comes back to the prosecutor and says, we've samples for DNA testing. Those samples point to no link. The prosecutor, on the basis of that, decides to withdraw that case. There are 2 other cases still running, and people say that the NPA bungled the matter. I mean, again, it's just not true.
The judges that say these...
No,
the judge in the case said this case is mismanaged by the state.
Well, I think the NPA has some things to say about reasoning, but I don't want to do that. That would be highly inappropriate. When you take a matter like Robert McBride, the NPA goes to court, in the regional court, conviction, McBride matter on appeal, is acquitted on appeal.
Yeah.
Mean that the NPA has bungled?
What is that a sign of?
No, remember, if you and I, even in a civil matter, take to court, you in the first round, I take appeal. The appeal says no, the judge in that case initially made these and these mistakes in the application of the law. Does that mean you had a bad case?
Good point.
No, because on appeal, what is on trial is not the merits or the demerits of the 2 sides. It's how the judge in the lower court applied the law to that case.
Well,
so
you understand our frustration
as
South Africans, Deputy Minister.
I understand that very much.
Yes.
But what me it points to is the need for a much more open, thorough debate and dialogue about these matters. We need to understand certain basics. Remember, we're 20 years into a constitutional democracy. We need to understand that if someone is charged and goes to court, it doesn't mean that they're going to be found guilty.
But clarify this point for us then. If you see on national television a man lose his life at the hands of police officers, it's said, and yet those very same police walk, as was the case in the matter. We are outraged as South Africans, and we hear and we see things, and we say the state is doing its job. So if you feel that right, clarify for us why we're not in that particular case, for example.
Each and every case has its own merit and demerits. It has dynamics. And I think what we also need to know is what is the role of a prosecutor. A prosecutor is not an investigating officer. The prosecutor doesn't get and collect evidence. The prosecutor gets presented docket with evidence. It's the prosecutor's job to present the evidence as best as possible to the. And that is what the prosecutor must be against.
But if evidence is faulty or it's not, or there's a problem with that evidence, why with that case anyway? Is that a sign that you're bungling the matter further?
Well, the problem is, in many cases, is getting criticized for exactly that, exactly where they do examine it and they decide not to prosecute. The example of evidence that I've just cited is one of those. NPA is being heavily criticized for evaluating evidence and can't proceed in this matter. It's not that we think it's innocent, but we, as prosecutor, don't have the evidence in court. I think also, a lot of the debate occasioned by 3 cases in the recent past.
Sure.
We forget that a couple of years ago, a high-profile celebrity, an actor, Jub case was there. Jub was sent to prison for 12 years and convicted of murder. We forget that the former Rustenburg, a high-profile politician, was convicted of murder. He's 20 years. We forget that the Sunday rapist has been multiple life sentences.
There are cases that we need to be.
That not so long ago, a complex, groundbreaking case involving human trafficking was in KwaZulu-Natal. Again, a life sentence.
Okay, we've got to take another short break, Minister, but thank you so much for highlighting so that we have a more holistic picture. But we are taking your SMSs, we are taking Facebook messages. Do keep them coming. We have to take a short break. We're back after. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Face just a quick of your Facebook messages. Dibitso says, does the operate outside political influence? G from number 1 at. And Oscar Letts says, why is the NPA taxpayers' monies trying to keep Bach from doing her work and Luli and his people to face justice? And Dumisani Nhlapo says, please ask the Deputy Minister, will ever truly have independent national prosecuting authority? Those are just some of the ones we can have a look at. Thank you so much for coming. Any comment regarding the independence of the NPA from interference? Because the perception is there whenever there are cases close to any of the high-profile representatives, really the president, that it's shut down in some way.
The reality, the prosecuting authority, independent institution under the Constitution, the minister final accountability, because prosecuting authority is an executive function, but there's absolute autonomy in terms of prosecutorial decisions. The minister or I have never interfered in prosecutorial decisions.
All right.
So let's be very clear.
Okay, so there's no political interference.
And I don't want to deep into individual cases, but I think it's common knowledge that there are very high-profile people, both and at an administrative level, currently before our courts.
Okay.
On corruption.
Let's leave that one there. Now these posts, the head of SIU and also the head of the acting position. Last year, the minister said you would appoint a head very soon. But then we had in the State of the Nation address also stating that same thing. And then the minister came back in February and said, okay, by the end it'll happen. When are these actually going to be filled?
Those matters are with the President. I'm sure that when they're ready to make an announcement, they will.
What's the problem, though?
Look, it's not... those appointments are the President's prerogative. I don't think it's for me to speak to when or how the President exercise that prerogative. What I say is that as important as those positions, those institutions resolve into one. There's an entire management in the NPA, the thousands of prosecutors in our country, of dedicated women and men every single day, put on their gowns, they go out
you and I
and
both that the leadership of an organization carry most of the weight, and they do determine what happens with that organization. So what I want to ask you is, the perception is out there that the reason why are not being filled is because is that political interference. So what is the problem then being filled?
But as I've indicated in the interview, in fact, the acting NDPP, first time in more than a decade, the NPA has had consecutive...
permanently then?
Well, that I can't... I think presumptuous of me.
But do you understand that concern for South Africans, and rightfully so?
And that concern, absolutely. I think the point I'm simply trying to make is that the NPA is in good hands at the moment.
But is the stalling then, in your view?
The President is stalling. I think the President is exercising his mind.
Why is he though?
He's taking into account arrangements given the importance and the seriousness of the position. Really, I think it would be a bit unfair to put myself
only because we're running out of time without any further. But just in of the prosecution rate that you spoke about earlier, let's look at this more holistically. You get these people prosecuted, yet according to Minister Sbundebele, he just told us that of over 150,000 prisoners that are there, almost 1,000 are not actually serving time. And he says it's a crisis. Do you agree?
No, I don't think it's a... There again, out of those 4,000, the vast majority, if my memory serves me, it's about 42,000 awaiting trial for less than 21. And on average, trial detainees are there for between 6 months.
So why would he say it's a crisis?
It's a group of about 1,800 that have been there for longer than 2 months. And most of them have been refused bail. Those are really serious cases.
So is the guided in declaring that a...
From the point of view of correctional, it's a very, very serious matter, because the successes of the police and of the prosecution are becoming the challenges of services. And we work closely together as a cluster because we appreciate those things.
Deputy Minister, you were right. We need an hour or so for this conversation. We have run out of time, and I do say goodbye.
But can I just conclude saying, I hope that nothing here tonight should be interpreted saying that there are no problems and no challenges.
No,
because that's honest, and it would do a great disservice to what should be a very serious and rigorous debate. I hope that at some stage we will have time where we can also talk about the serious problems we know are there in our criminal justice system and which require attention.
So much, and thank you for articulating some to us as South Africans in a very clear manner, that we also understand what's going on. Thank you through Deputy Minister of Constitutional Development, Mr. Andries. And thank you for tuning in to Interface, and thank you for your comments. Do join us again at the same time. Good night.